Bitcoin was often called truth or a truth machine. Something about coming into conformance with Bitcoin, not necessarily just as a technology, but as an ethos, as a social institution, perhaps. Like it gets strange here because we are part of the Bitcoin network, right? As entrepreneurs or holders or whatever your role is, like you are actually part of Bitcoin, just as you are part of the internet, right? As a user, you know, you have
even way different in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like you are in the internet as well, but in Bitcoin, it is really, you are both the map and the territory.
Okay. That's what I want to ask you. Like, so what is it? So this idea that when you come into contact with truth, you may realize that your belief architecture is incongruent, out of congruence, not congruent, incongruent, if that's how you say it,
incongruent
with that truth. Therefore, you need to deconstruct some of your belief structure and re-architect it in accordance with that truth. That could happen with anything, any revelation, any epiphany, you know, spiritual awakening, all of these things. Why is Bitcoin catalyzing this type of transformation in people?
Well, so let's start it at a couple different levels of this, but let's start at the top level and just to ask a simple question. If you lived on a ledger that was manipulated and it had to be more manipulated over time and it was masquerading as a free market, wouldn't that same ledger accrue wealth and status to the people who were best at manipulating it? Probably, or didn't see it. And would there be any place to hide from if you knew that it was all based on that? Could you hide from yourself? Because it would lead to something in you that if you knew and you kept doing that, you could easily tell. You could say to yourself, you could tell yourself a story. I can't stop it. I'm just part of it, which most people will. But it'll lead to a mirror reflection of the world we see, because we're both the map and the territory. And then ask yourself, what if a system was, you had an open, decentralized, secure protocol bounded by energy that couldn't be cheated? Wouldn't that also be a mirror? Wouldn't that also create a mirror reflection? And so those mirror reflections would be very different.
Right.
Over time.
Right.
One, you would be telling yourself, I need to make enough money so I'm beating the other guy in a zero-sum game.
Yes.
One, you would actually be healing the world where it's not a zero-sum game anymore, where everyone wins, 8 billion people in service of 8 billion people. And so that would naturally over time, this could take a long time, but if people are listening to this and this is the first time they've heard Bitcoin, this is going to be a bridge too far, right? Or it might be a bridge too far. But if people have been in Bitcoin for a while, they will feel exactly what I'm describing.
Yeah.
Because they will see the change in themselves through the course of being on the Honest Network, and they'll see that's the same in most of their relationships, and they'll see, it'll continue to expand. Right.
Okay. So if I'm going to try this like kind of active listening technique to say what you said to me, but in maybe another way, and see if I'm capturing it here. This idea of us playing a game where the rules are equally applied and unchangeable. Right now, and it's not exactly correct because you can change Bitcoin, but you can only change Bitcoin through consensus. So like it ends up being the pure expression of individual self-interest coming together, right? It's like a pure democracy, something like that. In this game where, we'll start with that. That's like an ideal game, right? That we sit down to play a game, we play cards or we play basketball or whatever it is. Well, there's rules that are in play. And as the old saying goes, you can't change the rules in the middle of a card game, right? That's to corrupt the game, destroy the game. It doesn't make any sense at that point because things that were rewarded or punished in the past of the game are now differently rewarded or punished in the future. And there's no comparison in one game, right? It basically destroys the game.
Right.
So ideally, any game we play, we sit down with an agreement on rules that don't change at least for that round of play. Right now, like over long spans of time, maybe the rules of chess change at the edges here and there, but like broadly speaking, they're the same over time, and that's what makes chess comparable over time. So that's how a game works. It has strong agreement about the rules. In this other world you're describing, the manipulated ledger, I think as you called it, the primary way to win in that game is to gain control of the rule making or rule manipulating apparatus.
Exactly.
Right. So if I can somehow come into control of, if we're playing basketball, or we'll stick with chess, I can make my queen invincible or something, some rule that would just give me the power to win no matter how we played, how well you played, how poorly I played, I would still always win because my queen's invincible or whatever, or king was invincible, whatever the thing was. That game is no longer a game. People are going to basically fight tooth and nail to gain control over that rule-making apparatus. So it's no longer a game. It's now become like a violent conflict or a political conflict at least. So is that capturing what you're saying? Are we talking about like the game of money is?
Yeah, we're looking at this from and there's a whole bunch of different vectors here. But the first thing we talked about, if the natural state of the free market is deflation, then what we should expect is on a game that can't be rigged, we should expect to, through that process, every human is in service to every other human on this planet.
Right, because there's no other way to score points.
Because now you've anchored to energy a system that can't be cheated.
Yes.
And so from that, but money has always been cheated. You would use the game has been cheated because that's how you would win the game, right? And that's why it's always looked like a control system. Yeah. And it's also why it's always fourth turning. All of these examples actually, I think, describe what I describe in a different fractal. It's always been deflationary.
Yeah.
It's just it slowly builds up and people don't notice it. So they're measuring inflation from zero where they should be measuring it from negative X, right? From the productivity rate. They should be getting richer every year.
Right.
And the only way to, and if you're in the British Empire, when the British Empire is exploiting other lands and stealing their resources, inside the British Empire, inside London, you look like you're winning the game. Still a zero-sum game. Somebody has to lose for you to win. So it turns into a control system. Then that breaks down because the free market's more competitive, and a bunch of those people who were being persecuted there move to the U.S. Right, and they move to the U.S. because their rights and individual rights are protected, and then that market is more productive. Yes, because of all the ideas. Right, and it becomes a superpower. Yes. And then that consolidates because of control of money. Yeah. And somebody can control money and essentially steal. The more people you have on your system, the more people you're stealing from. Yes. And you constantly go to war to reset these paradigms. Right. And Bitcoin changes that because it can't be cheated. So it puts I wrote this piece that was shared broadly, and I wrote it on Nostr, but it was shared on Twitter. That said, it's interesting so if you do game theory and payoff matrices in game theory, and you game you can't get caught. You won't get caught, and we're just going to keep on increasing the value, right? And so million, 2 million, 10 million, 20 million, a billion.
Sorry, that's the payoff
game theory and then payoff matrices. Okay. So you add additional components to game theory. Okay. To be able to see what people will do. Okay. Beast games, you watch, right? You see this naturally playing out in all society, and it always has because it's who we are. And so when you do this, what you see is I've seen studies is high as 20% of people won't cheat, and as low as 2.5%. Right. So, but let's use 2.5% for this. And what that really says is, what the studies are going through are their internal who they are, who they say they are, won't cheat for any price. But what is it? So 97.5% of people will. and always have.
Yeah.
And you could say it's 90 or 80, but it's a huge number of the population, huge number of your friends, my friends, huge number of people I love that will. And they'll tell themselves, I needed to do it for my family, or I needed to do it before it was done to me.
Right.
Or it was done, but that's the way the world works. And I just have to do, I have to do it. That's the way. So that's just, those are the numbers.
Yeah.
So what does that, looking back through our long arc of time, say about us? Is that it says that, and I think this is what it says actually about some of the most spiritual people or religious leaders and such. They were probably the 2.5% that were killed by the cheaters to wrestle this way. And then why we celebrated these this over and over again is it was reaching to our higher selves. And we celebrate our higher selves, that what we want to be in all of us that's not in all of us. So what is that? What now? But we've in the honest could never hide from the dishonest, because there's just too many. And when I say dishonest, I want to be. It's a nuanced. It's just in game theory, you will cheat.
Yes. Right.
Right. So, but if there's 2.5% or 10% of a population at all times, or 20% of a population, those are the people that will run nodes in Bitcoin. Those are the people that protect this network and they're unbuyable. Right? And lots of people will try to cheat it too. We have to expect that too, because that's just the numbers. But when you can now in Bitcoin have nodes behind Tor browsers distributed all over the world, and now the honest provide a floor, so most of society doesn't have to look like that. They can move to they can move to a paradigm that can't be cheated. So it's such a breakthrough, because we've never had something like that.
Yes.
And so it would make sense that if you had this money was perfect, no one would see you stealing a little bit. Right? And you could accrue huge wealth through that stealing. It would be the perfect game theories with those matrices. And so, of course, because most of us will, societies always look like that.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.